I've seen a piece that they walled that's like real hard cardboard. It was close to a quarter-inch thick. I mean, you couldn't stand on it, but it was, and that's like as dense as they could make. I mean, it wouldn't be any good for me. I couldn't stretch it at all. These are sort of, they're about the same consistency as John's in terms of the density of the thread. But I think that it would take somewhere around 45 minutes to weave the moon. It's fast.
Have you gone over there and seen?
No, I haven't. I've
God,
seen films of it.
Ah.
You know, there's two main moons that they have. This is done. All these are done on their smaller loom. It's like a 2-meter loom. The moon there is 6 feet diameter. So when I get the piece, it's about 6.5 feet, which is almost the full width of the 2-meter loom. But then they have a 3-meter loom, which is almost 10 feet wide.
What did you say the size was when you got it, before you stretched it?
Well, for the moon, it's the full width of the
Of the moon, okay.
2 meters, you know,
Okay.
like 6.5 feet.
Okay.
And I'm using it because I have about this much stretched around the back all the way around. The other piece here is called a Newick Coptus. It's like the symbol on your on a dollar bill. I made it so it shook. And if you study the thing at all, it's got a lot of symbolism to it, and that's why they use it on the dollar bill. And the idea is that God is looking down on us and approves of our endeavors, which is handy. Yeah. So I made a couple of them. I made a silver one and a couple bronze ones like this. I think that this was done for the 13 original colonies, because there's 13 bows. And then I was invited to make a piece several years ago now for Santa Barbara. They had an annual event. They would put art up and down State Street. There was an individual woman that would sponsor the thing, and the city put in under the brick pavers. There's actual foundations put in, so they had to give you a picture of a bolt pattern, and you could build a sculpture and put it on the street. And I've been working on these things, and it was fairly short notice when they asked me if I would make the piece. They had about a dozen people. There was about a dozen works up and down state. And so I thought, well, and the idea was, they also mentioned to me that part of the idea was something about recycling. And I think I was the only person that did anything about recycling, as it turned out. But I decided that I would build a tower out of crushed up cans, like, you know, the CRB aluminum cans. And I have this huge bandsaw, and I thought, well, I'll get a block of them and bandsaw it into cubes and stack them up. Because they make, like Harrison and Sons, the trash collection, they make blocks of them. It turns out that they're about 3,000 pounds a piece. And it got very complicated to try and deal with the CRB people. I called the building in Sacramento, and they were on the 25th floor of this building, and no one was at their desk. And it went on, and I went to various recycling places, and most of the guys there don't speak any English. But a guy wrote out the name of a company, and I called them, and they explained to me that they're continually being audited by the state, and there's a kind of a gray area between when they get the cans and pay the money for the cans, and then they sell them as a commodity to be reused. It's a kind of a specialized aluminum, actually, and it's worth quite a bit. Finally, I gave up entirely on the idea of cutting up these big, huge aluminum things. It would be, I have a forklift and stuff, but it would be difficult to do. And I went over to the golf course there at Soul Park, where I play all the time, and I talked to them, and they started saving the cans, because they would recycle the cans and use it for the, like, to have a party and buy clothes and stuff for the groundkeeping crew. So I just paid them the same as the recycling place would. And I ended up with somewhere around 3,500 cans. And I washed them all because they stink. And so I set up a thing with several water baths and some soap and Clorox and all. And I washed them all, and I set up a motor with a drill bit in it because it took a long time to drain them. So I would go through these baths, and then I would stab them onto this drill bit and poke a hole in them, which let them drain quickly. And then I crushed them to about this long. Not as far as I could, but with one of those, it's a kind of a lever thing. And I built these galvanized baskets that were square. They were like huge. And so I built this column about this size. It was about 12 feet tall, the column, 6 baskets, 2 feet square. And I made one of these out of galvanized metal. And they put it up right in front of the bank.